Okay, we're good to go whenever you are, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Justin. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 10:06 a.m. I'll read the land acknowledgement. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattah-Waddamwack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I'll move to item number 3, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I will go to number 4, adoption of the agenda. For those that don't have your video on, could you just put them on for the short being so I can see the hands being raised for the votes? Can I get an adoption for the adoption of the agenda? Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Okay, moved by Carrie, seconder, and that would be Leslie. Thank you. I'll call the question now. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, that should be good. Item number 5, adoption of the minutes, ECC BAC 2023, November 3rd, 2023. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes? Okay, I'll move. Can I get a seconder? Okay, and that is Amber. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that looks good. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go on to item number 6. This is a presentation with Erin Rising. She's the program coordinator for Niagara Community Gardens, and she is partnered with Luke Balk, who's going to assist her in the presentation. He's community garden operational lead. They're going to talk about community gardens now. This is pretty interesting, and I'll get into a little bit more detail on why I wanted this to be presented to the committee. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass the meeting over to Erin and Luke. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. Just let me share my screen and we can get started. All right. Oops. If you could, everyone can see my screen, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Perfect. All righty. Well, thanks again so much for having us here today. My name is Luke Bach, and I am a community garden operational lead, and my colleague Erin Rising here is a Growing Communities program coordinator. And we're here with United Way Niagara and the Niagara Community Garden Network, and to talk to you about community gardens, their benefits to community, and also the benefits to the environment. And we're really excited to share about our work and our passion for community gardens, and we'll get started. So first off, just a quick agenda for our presentation. We're going to first talk about us, about the Community Garden Network, and what we do, how we support our members. We're going to talk about the benefits to the community, as well as the benefits to the environment. And then we'll end off just kind of going over some community garden models and their benefits of them to the community. So the Community Garden Network is a collaborative partnership between 75 plus community gardens across Niagara region. Now, our goal is to connect communities and share knowledge and resource. And our mission is to build community, improve local food access by supporting, expanding, and enhancing community gardening across Niagara. Now, the act of growing and sharing food can transform communities and address environmental, health, and social issues. They're a vital outdoor hub where people come together to grow food. They come here to learn, share stories, recipes, food, culture, and connect. Now, they connect with each other, they connect with their food, but they also connect with nature. And all of these things are especially important today during with all these challenging times. And there's many ways, different ways that different communities garden within their community. And we aim to link them together, like I said, to share resource, knowledge, and support one another. So the first word in community gardens is, of course, community. Community involvement is imperative in the success of any community garden. So here's a look at some of our members. Now, our members themselves include community gardeners, volunteers, garden coordinators, as well as host organizations, donors, and community allies. And some of those organizations are things like neighborhood groups, non-for-profit agencies, schools, childcare centers, faith-based groups. And all of these organizations and people are coming together to support one another, share resources, and to empower people of all ages to grow healthy and nutritious food. So where are these gardens? Well, you can see at this map here, there's a number of community gardens across the region. And you can actually visit our website. We have niagaracommunitygardens.ca. And there's a directory there that will show you a garden that's closest to your home. And this site acts as a way for people to learn more about the gardens, contact them if interested, and for the public to get involved within their local, their closest community garden. So how do we as the Community Garden Network actually support our members and the community gardens? Well, we offer a range of resources to the community gardeners, coordinators, volunteers, and the general public. And these include encouraging mutual support. We do this by hosting different monthly networking meetings among members to share different information, experiences, best practices, and also like shortcomings, issues that we're experiencing during the season. It's a really powerful way because sometimes gardening can be frustrating, and a lot of times we're experiencing a lot of the same issues. So to share amongst our group is really important. We host a variety of workshops that include gardening, food skills, and community building. We share online tools and resources, provide financial support. So we share grant opportunities and and sharing information based about that to our members. We consult on new and existing projects, so helping projects get off the ground and help support the ones that are already in place. We help connect gardeners to the garden coordinators and the broader community to ensure the long-term success of the garden. And we also advocate for the community gardens with municipalities and the region and to the broader community as a whole. We would love to see more gardens across Niagara. They're so valuable for the community and the environment. And we offer guidance to individuals and groups who want to start and maintain a community garden. So to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. Community gardens produce not only healthy food, but they actually they have so many other incredible impacts to their neighborhood that we'll explore, both to the community and the environment as well. So for anyone that's unsure, a community garden simply is a land that is gardened collectively by a group of people. It can either be on public or private land. And they are accessible green spaces for people of all walks of life to come together in nature. These pics that you're seeing on screen right now is at a large community garden in St. Catharines at Richard Pierpoint Gardens. Now this is 60 community allotments, and the perimeter of the garden is surrounded by perennial food plants. They have raspberry bushes, pear trees, a native pawpaw tree, which is really exciting, hazelnut trees, and many other amazing productive plants. And to think of the benefits to biodiversity by transforming what might have been a mowed turf area into a thriving ecosystem like this is really profound as a space to come together, but also for the natural environment and the natural ecosystems that exist within our urban green spaces. Now at these gardens, gardeners grow a wide variety of vegetables, herbs, fruit, and flowers. They're building community, they're beautifying their neighborhood, they're supporting local wildlife. A lot of these plants attract native pollinators and other wildlife to the space and provide provide a space within the urban setting for these species to thrive. And these spaces also act as educational spaces and have lots of therapeutic purposes as well. Post-pandemic, a lot of people have fallen in love again with gardening, and this is a space where people can come together for that sense of community and the many therapeutic benefits. I will actually just go back one point. I want to point out this accessible garden. So on the right there, you'll see this raised garden bed. It's really important to make these spaces accessible as possible. So making it wheelchair accessible, raising it higher up so that people with mobility issues can access these gardens and benefit from the use of them as well. So what are some of the community benefits to community gardens? Well, they strengthen social connectedness and neighborhood cohesion. They create community spaces that bring people together. They encourage cooperation, friendship, and understanding amongst diverse groups, which is imperative these days. They produce healthy, affordable food, improve nutrition, and reduce household food costs. Gardening offers an enjoyable physical activity, improves overall health, and alleviates stress and supports mental and emotional well-being. It really fosters a respect for the environment. When gardeners are acting as stewards using sustainable gardening techniques, it really resonates with them, and they seem to be more connected with nature and have a better understanding of the role we play in being stewards of the environment. And it provides a safe, inclusive outdoor space to enjoy, get people out in nature. A lot of times us in urban settings just don't get outside enough and get our hands dirty. And some of the most profound experiences I've had with people in the garden is just them connecting to the nature, getting their hands dirty, touching the soil, or seeing a bug they haven't seen before, or many of those things. And that really changes their perception of what's in their own backyard. So in terms of environmental benefits to community gardens, it's not just human communities that have benefits, but also the natural communities as well. They increase biodiversity, so community gardens provide a habitat for various plants and animal species. They promote biodiversity in urban areas by creating green spaces. Many of them are using native plants to attract native pollinators to their space, which is essential for many plants to grow and thrive. They increase soil health and conservation. So community gardens contribute to the soil health by adding organic matter through composting and mulching, improving soil structure, fertility, and water holding capacity, water holding capacity can relate to stormwater runoff, keeping rain that falls on a space within that space, kind of reducing the impacts of storm surges and et cetera. It reduces food miles, so growing food locally helps reduce the distance needed to travel from farm to plate. It reduces carbon emissions associated with transport and supports just a more sustainable food system. Most importantly, lastly, is education and awareness. Community gardens just provide opportunities for education about sustainable garden practices, organic farming, and environmental stewardship. They serve as outdoor classrooms, teaching people of all ages some of the importance of environmental conservation and sustainable living. So to talk a little bit about the different types of gardens, so we have a variety of options that we work with. So we have the individual allotment type garden. These spaces are divided into plots. They're rented or leased for the season by individual family organization who is responsible for the planting, maintenance, and the harvest of the space. There's shared gardens where the group works together in one large garden space and they share the harvest amongst it, either for their own use or to support local food programs. So they can, such as a food bank or community produce markets, etc. There is mixed gardens as well that use both these styles, a couple single allotments as well as the collective shared space. It really depends on the community's interest and their desire. It's really looking at the community's needs and almost at a case-by-case basis, and making sure it fits within the community and is what they're after in terms of their goals. And then there's the teaching, demonstration, therapeutic, and school gardens. They can help children, youth, and the broader community learn, like I was talking about earlier. Schools are a great place to have a community garden or have a garden space to learn that practical knowledge. And there's science, social studies, math to be learned within the garden, as well as, again, that connection to nature and where your food comes from is super important for everyone. So I want to share a couple pictures of just some of our community gardens here. This community garden here is located in a church in Niagara Falls, run by Project Share. Project Share oversees the garden. Most of the plots are rented to families. Some of them are dedicated to growing food specifically for the food bank, which is really, really exciting. This one here is the Grantham Community Garden. This is home to over 50 community garden plots. They have partnered with an organization called Links for Greener Learning, who has dedicated plots for newcomers who can grow food for their families and allowing them to grow food that they might not be able to find in a grocery store that's culturally appropriate to them. Yeah, and 50 in this garden too, 50 of these plots are actually in ground and not in raised beds. So that provides more options for environmental benefits like minimal tilling, for soil health, etc. And then here's just a couple more. And I'll leave it there. If you guys want to get in touch about starting a community garden or have any questions, we'll open it up now, I guess, for some questions from any of you there. But we're here to support community gardens across Niagara, help people get started, help them where they are, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much, Luke and Aaron. I've known about the community gardens for some time, but I really didn't get to fully understand the scope of this organization until I happened to stumble upon a community organization in St. Catharines, and it was Heg Neighbors. And I reached out to them and I started attending some of their committee meetings with Jeff Hurst as the chair and Cassandra Bradshaw as the secretary. And they've been active now for about a year, I think. And they had some meetings from about November leading into the springtime where they finally reached a point where the city and the organization, the Hig Neighbors, reached an agreement. There's a lease agreement that they set up. And then I attended some of their days where they were actually installing their gardens. They have a plot on it's a pie-shaped lot on York and Taylor in St. Catharines. And over the time that I've been attending these meetings, what I really like about this organization and what these groups are doing, and you talked about it a lot, Luke, and its connectedness. And when this committee was first formed, when I was elected as the chair, I said the success of this committee is going to be based on community involvement. In other words, we want the community people telling us or giving us ideas and input on what issues we're going to address based on what our mandate's all about. And what the Hague group has done has gone from a very quiet local group to actually being quite the activists within promoting environmental stewardship. Jeff's done presentations to City Council. If you read the St. Catharines Standard, they've had several articles in the paper about the activities of the Hig Neighbors, to the point where they are lobbying the city on increasing the tree canopy. So this is the type of people that we need to be connecting with to help our committee succeed in achieving the various areas of our particular mandate. So I just want to thank Aaron and Luke again for this. Was a wonderful presentation, and I'm going to open up the meeting now to questions from the committee members. I see Leslie has her hand up.
Hi. A couple of years ago, before COVID, the City of Thorold, the Niagara District Catholic School Board, and Monsignor Clancy asked me to be a resource on the committee. And they have a plot of land that's on school property, and they were considering making a pollinator community garden. I said it was like apples and oranges, and I suggested that the community garden aspect be developed by the city on their land, because my kids all went through the Catholic school system, and I know that when they set up that plot on that corner, it's going to be fenced in and it's going to be locked because it's on school ground property. So I suggested they do a pollinator 3-season garden there and focus their interest in community gardens on a plot of land that already belongs to the city. Now, COVID shut down that committee, which isn't surprising, but I expect that it's going to be brought up again. So council and at least the engineering department that were involved are really interested in putting together something. And if we can learn enough to help them, that would be excellent. But that's the first time I've heard them interested in either a pollinator garden or a community garden. I must explain, I'm the district director for OHA for all of the region from Dunnville to Niagara River and Lake Ontario to Lake Erie. And so we have a lot of communities, 13 of them, that are all working towards these sorts of goals. But what interested me about this was I've never heard of it. I'm sorry, but I have a huge list of things that go back to 1980, groups and organizations across the province and in the States. So a group like ours that is diverse and in this community, if we could get you as a speaker, either for CD Saturdays or I could put you on the list for the societies when they start up again after Christmas, that would be excellent because you'd be bringing the message to the audience that already agrees with everything you're saying. And we do a lot of that work. We do a lot of education. We're presently setting up a program with the library that will carry through the summer, bringing kids and their parents. We built 2 low-level raised beds, and we've got them ready for the spring. And then we're going to have the CD Saturday, and we're going to have kids planting there and then taking the produce home, because we expect it to be a diverse garden. And that's the only other thing I wanted to say was that no one said that you have to get rid of all your non-native plants. What they said is biodiversity, and it doesn't matter whether you've got some fruit and vegetables growing in your garden, nectar flowers that are non-invasive but may not be native, and native. You need that whole diversity because they all interact. So anyway, thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. That was that's great of you to offer. I'm aware of the CD Saturday that you're going to be putting together in February. I'll definitely be participating in that myself as Weeby House. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. We'll probably try to do something, have some kind of representation from the Environment Committee at that event as well, so we can try to introduce ourselves to the community. And what I'm going to throw out here for Luke and Aaron is I put forward a proposal to City Council back in August, asking for the City of Thorold to host an Earth Day event. And this would be something that would be comprised of some ecologically friendly type vendors selling products. And then the other half would be organizations that would be delivering messages, pertaining to the environment, such as yourself. We also had at that meeting, or just before that, one of the councilors put forward a proposal to the city to put forward a tree giveaway / rain barrel sale program that hopefully would tie together with the Earth Day event. So we'd be looking at the third Saturday in September. So just keep that that day open, because I would like to probably have you, if this goes through, as a participant. As Leslie says, then you can be speaking about what's going on. And I would hope that we would be having a very large audience that would be participating in this event. So thank you. Thanks, Leslie. And I see Carrie's got her hand up.
I think Mark had his hand up first, if you want to take him.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Mark, go ahead. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Joe. Just first of all, I love the presentation on the concept of community gardens. I'd love to see the day when that map you showed is just blanketed with sites. The question I have for you is really around the land. Where is it most of the land coming from? You mentioned both private and public, but what does that mean? What is it today? Is it mostly private or is it mostly public? And a second part of that question is to the city of Thorold. Is there a process for requesting land, assuming there is any available, for doing a community garden?
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having us today. I can speak to that question. So it's quite diverse, actually. I would say the majority of the gardens might be on private land, but that could include, church property. We want to see a lot more gardens in public spaces, of course. That's something that we're actively working towards. So actually, I believe it was during COVID, I did a whole bunch of municipal advocacy work where I was going and presenting to all the various councils. I did come to Thorold as well. And basically was making recommendations about how municipalities can be better allies to advance this work, because there are very significant barriers, unfortunately, to neighborhood groups such as the one that Joe was speaking about. St. Catharines, the city of St. Catharines has actually been quite a leader in Niagara in terms of removing some of those barriers, which include things like providing funding, removing insurance requirements, or at least including them under parks policy. Things like that. So I would love to continue to work with the city of Thorold around how we can better promote community growing. A lot of the gardens in Niagara are run by nonprofit agencies. So Luke showed a picture of Project Share. They have 3 gardens. Links for Greener Learning have a number. Often they're in social service agencies who might be using it with their clients. So Bethesda has some community gardening programs, NTech, for example. So, there are gardens in public spaces, but we would love to actively advance that. Like I said, it's something that's really important. And of course, the interest and demand is growing all the time. So that's something that we're hoping to support as best we can.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to you, Carrie, I'm just going to respond to Mark with something. When Aaron was talking about, like, there's legal responsibilities, et cetera, that go along with this type of thing. I've got a copy of a lease agreement that Hague Neighbor has with the city, like the application process that you go through. So what I can do is I can forward that to the committee members so you can get an idea of what all is involved when you're dealing with the public property, like city-owned property, whether you're into the parks or little green spaces that the city has that is land that not is really appropriate for developing on. So it's just a mowed lawn, so to speak. Okay. So let's go to Carrie.
Sorry,
okay,
thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. So there is a process within the city of Thorold to request a community garden, but you're saying, and you'll share that process with us?
I'm not aware of one for Thorold, but this is a lease agreement that the city of St. Catharines has with the groups that want to set up a garden. So I'll forward that to you and you can get an idea of it. So it's quite a legal document. I mean, it covers basically everything. So I'll forward that to the committee members and you can have a look at that. I'm going to go with Carrie now.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. I was going to say that it does make things a lot smoother when the city has something in place, a process, because and hi, Aaron, and nice to meet you, Luke. I do know for my own, I live in the city of Welland, and we had a community, somebody in our community that wanted to start a community garden, and it was like, it's been a 3-year long process, I think, because of all the processes not being in place already. So I think the city of St. Catharines is a really good example of like when the process is in place, it makes it a lot simpler for these things to happen. So that could be something as a committee, I suppose, that we could, you know, sort of advocate for that process to be put in place through the city of Thorold. And one thing I don't know if it came up, but one thing when it comes to location is access to water, because I know that was something, you know, you can install rain gardens and things like that, but you need to have, or rain barrels, I mean, but you need to have a roof or something to collect that water, if it's not already like a tap or something there in place, and putting that in, as you can imagine, is quite expensive if you don't have it. I do really love the fact that you've included some pawpaws and some native edibles in your gardens, Luke, and in your presentation. And that's just something I was just going to say in terms of resourcing and funding and budget. If there is an inclusion of native plants, things like raspberries and pawpaws and things like that, that could be something that the Conservation Authority could look at helping to support a community garden. And Aaron and I have had lots of conversations about including pollinator gardens adjacent to or with community gardens as a kind of bringing that messaging home about pollinators and food access and things like that. So that's all I'm going to say. I've taken up enough time.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. I'm going to go with Leslie now.
One of the things that we're doing with this plot of land was we've been asked, our group has been asked to develop a bylaw for boulevard planting. Now, the city and the other partners in this one process are really at a point, or were and will be again, at a point where that's what they want to do. But they have to, I actually was the resource for the Garden City Gardens in St. Catharines, and I set up their pollinator garden on city property at Victoria Lawn Cemetery. Because they had a process, they let us go ahead, and then the following year in January, we had to go through that questionnaire that they put together that is so basic. And I think Joe is right that any of that information that goes to a committee that has the city engineer already in line in Thorold and interested in both a community garden and or a pollinator garden, that's a place to take, not reinvent the wheel and come at them with another idea of how to do it, but to try to get involved with that one and expand it so that if they started in January this year, they wouldn't be ready to plant anything till the following season because of the process in St. Catharines. It could be lessened in Thorold because there's some things that are not constraints. And the other thing is, number one, whether it's public, private, and you can read all the literature in North America, is water. We have been asked to set up a community garden on various plots of land in Thorold over the last 7 years. And the reason they never went ahead was because they didn't have access to water. And if you don't have that, it doesn't matter whether you've got a green space. You have to have that access and the backing of council with a bylaw of how you do it. And you have to sign a contract, basically. Already in waiting, we just need to tap into it when they start up again.
Very well said, Leslie. Good, I agree. Any other further questions? Okay, seeing none. That was very good conversation. The questions
Councillor
and answers,
O'Hare
excellent.
here as well.
Great presentation.
Sorry, Chair. I've got Councillor O'Hare wants to.
Okay, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, but first I want to thank Aaron and Luke for coming in and making this presentation very informative. Thank you very much. I'm a strong believer in community gardens. I'm a strong believer in gardening in general. So I really do support this initiative here in Thorold. And I'll echo Mark as well, who said that he'd like to see a lot more community gardens within our own city, that's for sure, especially in this day and age with rising food costs. It's aside from all the other benefits, the community building benefits, just the fact that food costs are just rising to extremely new highs in costs for people. So I fully support this. I have a couple of nitty-gritty questions. You talked about financial support. So let's start with that one. Does the financial support only come from the city, or are there groups out there that will provide money to local community groups who want to start up a community garden? So that's the first question. Thank you.
Hi, Tim. Most of the municipalities do not have budget allocations for community gardens, except for the city of St. Catharines does. They have different levels of funding. So they have funding available annually for the establishment of new gardens. And then they also have funding available for existing gardens who may want to expand or add or develop their garden, which is really wonderful. So, I mean, that's really wonderful. And it's a great support to these community groups such as Hag Neighbors. A lot of, as I mentioned, the gardens in Niagara are run by nonprofit agencies, so they often will seek external funders to support that project. So it might be United Way. We don't have a funding stream specifically for community gardens, but through this garden network, they allocate an annual budget that we share amongst the existing garden members for things like tools and seeds and plants and whatnot. And then also if they want to expand their garden, so we can help them with soil and lumber purchases and things like that. And basically that's coordinated through myself. And then, you know, there's other organizations like Niagara Community Fund, TD Friends of the Environment is a great supporter of community gardens. So there are particular funders who prioritize community gardens. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Also, some community groups will do their own fundraising projects, which, you know, I think unfortunately is somewhat limited in terms of what they can mobilize, but they're wonderful for things like getting donations of tools and lumber and sheds and things like that even. And then again, through our garden network, we have people who support us as a network. So William Dam Seeds has been a wonderful supporter. They give us like giant boxes of really wonderful heirloom seeds every year. Stoke Seed, a local seed supplier, also funds individual gardens through our garden network every year. We have people who do reach out with tool donations and things like that. And so we'll just sort of work within the group to make sure that whoever needs it gets those supports.
Great, thank you very much. That sounds promising. The second question is regarding the actual plot and allotments that are rented. How are the fees decided upon for those individual plots and allotments? Typically, I understand from Toronto's situation that they're incredibly in great demand, and therefore there's a lineup of people looking for these community plots and allotments. Is that the same situation here in Niagara as well? So a couple of questions there. One is the cost, the fees, and also what about the expectation of actually being able to rent an allotment?
So each of the gardens are independent. So they're run by, again, an organization or a neighborhood group or a school or what have you. So they all have very different models. Some of them, so for example, Community Care St. Catharines has plots available at Terosian Park. And they offer those plots for free, but there's a $5 deposit for use of the key to the shared tool shed. So if they lose their key, they lose their deposit, but otherwise they're offering it obviously as a food security sort of mandate or priority. Ones that are in public spaces, so that, for example, the one at Pierpoint Park, the fee is $20 for use for the whole season, which I think is a really good deal. And they're also very open to, if there are people in the community who would like a plot but maybe can't afford it, either I'll pay for their plot for them, if they request it, or often the community group or the group running it are very happy to just say, you know what, we'll waive the fee for you. As far as demand goes, so we saw a huge surge in demand during COVID when everybody was home, where we had pretty much every single community garden had a quite extensive wait list. That sort of petered out a couple years ago once things sort of normalized and people were going back out into workplaces and things like that. So some of them do have a fair wait list, maybe 5 to 10 people on a wait list. And then others are able to meet their demand. So some of them might even be able to offer a community member 2 plots if they happen to have an extra one and things like that. But they're all independent, so they kind of make decisions and lead it how they see fit based on their goals and priorities.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, is there questions from anybody else? Seeing none, thank you, Luke and Aaron. That was a great presentation. Lots of information delivered. I hope the committee members are eager to see this kind of move forward. Like Leslie says, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I'll forward you just the lease agreement that Hague neighbors have with St. Catharines, and we can see what we might be up against and how we can maybe put together a plan of action to approach the city and see how we can proceed with this. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just real quick there. Connor McIsaac here from the planning department. Something that this committee could do would be to refer staff into looking into coming up with an internal process for the use of city lands. Right now, I'd have to talk to community services, but I don't believe we have a process. We more have a temporary permit for works that are on city property, but if it was more of a long-term lease, that might be something that we'd have to look into. And then as far as funding from the city side, we could also look into adding it to the existing grant program. So if that was something that committee wanted to recommend, we could look into that as well.
Okay, thank you, Connor. That's good to know. Okay, then thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, moving on. Item number 7, correspondence. 7.1 CLK-C 83-2023. This was the letter of recommendation to support the EVSX battery recycling plant. You'll see that there was two copies provided in the package, and I seem to have lost mine. You'll see that the council had some concerns about the last paragraph that is talking about the second and third stages going beyond the alkaline process. So what through the discussion, it was agreed amongst council members that they would remove that last little paragraph so that the letter was just basically supporting the installation and operation of an alkaline battery processing facility. There was some lengthy discussion on some concerns that were discussed. And I have to say that I watched the meeting, I watched the discussion, and one concern that I had that really did not explain clearly what was going on was Councillor Handley raised an incident that happened back in 2007 where there was an explosion in Port Robinson at the Clean Harbors facility, and it was known that there was lithium batteries on site. And what his position was, he was not clear in explaining really what the business operation entailed with Clean Harbors. And Clean Harbors was a chemical waste treatment facility. So not only was there lithium batteries on the site, but there was a lot of hazardous substances there for treatment, processing. So you would have volatile organic compounds associated with solvents such as xylene, toluene, solvent-based paints that are stored in 45-gallon drums that are sealed. So when this explosion took place and the fire department showed up, knowing through WMIS and what chemicals were inside this facility, they were in a position where they could not extinguish the fire because there was known substances in there that became volatile when they would be exposed to water. So the fire department could not extinguish this fire. They could merely just stand back and evacuate the neighborhood and let the fire basically burn itself out. And that was the nature of this type of facility. Councillor Handley only spoke on the concern that this was lithium batteries that were responsible for this explosion, hence allowing lithium batteries in the EVSX facility would pose the same risk, but they're two entirely different businesses. They're sure there's going to be risks in EVSX, but not in the same context that their exposure was within the Clean Harbors facility. So I just wanted to clarify that there's always concerns when you are dealing with products and processes that have those kinds of risks associated with it. So I just want to make that clear. Has everybody had a look at the letter and they're okay with that? It seemed the council was quite excited that this is going to move forward. So I'll leave that at that. If anybody's got any comments, questions. Seeing none, okay. Let's move on to the next item. 7.2 CL 24-2023 Tree Canada Community Grant Motion. This was something that was brought forward by John Hamilton, who was the previous vice chair. He was going to be looking after this, and this was a grant that's available to communities through Tree Canada, up to $10,000 for tree planting initiatives. Unfortunately, John stepped down from the committee, so Councillor O'Hare took over the process, and there is a deadline for applying for this, which was December 3rd. So Councillor O'Hare brought this up at the council meeting on November 21st, asking staff to proceed with the process. So there's a couple days left before the deadline expires. So if I can go to Councillor O'Hare for an update on where this currently stands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so we've had a couple of meetings already. Just a brief summary. It's a grant from Tree Canada up to an amount of $10,000, of which we're going to be pretty close in terms of our request. The date, you're correct, is December 3rd, and I want to give special attention to our Jeff Holman, who pulled his team together to get this application ready in time. There wasn't a lot of time to do this, but they've done it, and I'm really grateful for their hard work. The application probably went out yesterday, or it's going out today. It is complete now. So we have made the time frame for the application, and that's a wonderful thing. The grant is going to be for larger trees than what we planted out at the cemetery. So we're going to be looking at 5 to 7 foot trees for the planting idea that has been discussed, and it's been discussed with staff. It's been discussed with the Melswart Park Committee group as well. And then it'll come to council should we be successful in being awarded the grant. So At present, the grant has been sent off, and I believe we hear results by March. If we're successful and council agrees, then the planting will be done in 2024. We'll again issue calls for community involvement and get some volunteers out to participate in the planting of some of the smaller trees. It's mostly going to be larger trees. There will be a few smaller plugs that we'll put into some areas that could use some extra canopy area for our future, of course. And that's about everything on that. So if anyone has a question, I'll take a question, but I'm really grateful to staff for having gotten this completed on time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go with Carrie. She's got her hand up.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and you may have already said it, and if I missed it, I'm sorry. Are the trees, if I remember correctly through Tree Canada, all the trees that are, the species that are selected have to be native? Is that the case, Councillor O'Hare?
That's correct. That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, seeing none. Let's go on to number 8, committee business. 8.1 of the Climate Change Summit that was held at Brock University back in October. The meeting was recorded. It was broken down into 4 segments, and it was available through the Niagara region. I did send out a letter asking for people to, the committee members, to view it if you could get to it. I didn't get through all of it, but I did get about halfway through. I got interrupted with some issues this week that set my time in chaos. But what I did see, I was pleasantly surprised with. I was really impressed with Brock University with their direct energy system that they have, and the fact that it's available for tours. Up until some time ago, you could arrange for a tour once a month, but now they're doing twice monthly tours of their direct energy system, and it's quite it's really impressive what they've been able to do there. And it all started out because when they built Brock University, and it was out in the sticks, they never had access to natural gas, so everything was all electric. And in the 80s, when they started converting, it was very easy for them to convert from the electric to go into a DES system. So, the whole university operation over the decades it's existed has been led by a lot of good visionaries, and they should be applauded for where they currently sit right now, and they have done a wonderful job. Did anybody get a chance to see any of the videos, or if they could comment on? I see Mark's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. If I could just talk for a couple of minutes on this subject. So I think it would be good for perhaps everyone just to step back and understand what the Niagara Climate Change Action Network is trying to accomplish with this kickoff of the Niagara Region Climate Change Summit. And it really is, their focus is really on a pathway to net zero, climate resilient infrastructure, as well as concern for biodiversity. So I think we should understand that the summit that was held didn't seem that long ago, but I guess you're right, Joe, it was back in October. It really, one of the main purposes of that summit was to sort of kick off the development of a community energy plan. And this community energy plan is going to be looking at what the region's energy needs are. It's going to be looking at reducing consumption, but it's also going to be focusing on implementing local renewable and sustainable energy. And I think this is really a really important initiative for the region. And it's really our pathway, I believe, to get to zero emission buildings. I do have an update, if I could go ahead, Joe, and talk about in terms of the timelines going forward, because I've only gotten through about half the presentation as well. But I think it's important for us to understand what the going forward schedule is. And from my understanding from somebody from a climate change specialist from the NCCAN group has told me that one of the first steps is to secure funding from the Ontario government. And this will be happening hopefully sometime in Q2 of 2024. In the meantime, they are running some other projects, one of which is a development of a corporate climate change action plan. And so they're looking at sort of the second half of next year being the roll up your sleeves time for getting into the community energy plan itself. And at that point, they're going to be pulling together some stakeholder teams with utilities and other key stakeholders. So I'm hoping that somehow we can get involved with that, or we'll see how that goes. So that's what's happening. But the key really is around the funding, which I believe is mostly for staffing and the development of this CEP. So that's a really important step. And if you were able to watch some of the summit meeting itself, we heard from somebody from Oakville talking about their work that they've been doing on developing a CEP, and they have some amazing plans, but they've been really hampered by the lack of funding. So that's something that's going to be really important going forward in their development of green development standards, which is really part of the CEP. One of the things they raised also was talking about community education. And I think that's something that's really important, and we're going to need to perhaps help with in Thorold. You talked about the Brock speaker, and there was somebody else there from York Region talking about transit and how to green their transit. And then there was someone else there to talk about heat pumps. And that's about as far as I got. But I think it's all really very informative and motivating in terms of there are solutions out there. It's a matter of how do we get there. Yeah,
you're right. The presentation by Richard Montoya when he was with York Region about the electrification of their transit system was really interesting. I mean, they're ambitious, and they were ahead of the curve on what they've done in terms of when they're securing certain funding grants. Their money's going to go directly into assets rather than studies, because they've already done the studies and they're planning. They started, what was in 2019 or so. So, they got about a dozen electric buses right now. They got a fleet of over 700, but I think by 2036, they'll no longer be buying any more diesel buses. And then that there'll be, I guess, weaning off of the diesels and increasing the electrification of their fleet. So they've got some bugs right now. Battery capacity is weakened a bit in the wintertime. Charging stations, calculating the mileage on the routes and where they can put in off-site charging stations that aren't at the basic depot. So that is a big region. It services 1.2 million people, and it's also hooked up with the TTC. So they are probably the group to go to if you want to learn about how you can deal with a smaller scale system. Mark?
Yeah, so and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it really emphasized the challenge that the region is going to have, because as I mentioned, the technologies and the knowledge in terms of renewables and geothermal energy and district heating and heat pumps, it's all there. It's all being used elsewhere in the world. The challenge is going to be the funding, and the issue really comes around CapEx versus OpEx. Capital intensive upfront for all of these renewable type of projects, but in the long run, from an OpEx perspective, the payback is amazing. So that's going to be the challenge for the region to figure out, I believe, in terms of how do they go ahead and implement some of these capital intensive activities when, you know, it may result in additional taxes or what have you, when we know 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, it is really going to save a lot of money. So that's the business case that everyone's going to be talking about.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I got Amber sent me a little chat that she actually was at the event. Amber, would you like to speak on what your thoughts were?
Sure, I don't have much more to speak to than what you already stated. I think it was a great kickoff to starting to consider a community energy plan. I think that the presenters were able to give a lot of context to some pieces of what that might be, looking at transit, looking at heat pumps and programs and all of that great stuff. Overall was very well done, in my opinion. I think that it was very, very informative and definitely gave some good resources for people who might not know a lot about some of the pieces, some good fallbacks to go to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, the only beef I had was with some of the presenters, the person on the floor with the microphone was not getting to the questions, and you couldn't really hear the questions being asked. And you know, it was important to hear the questions when you were listening to the answers, but the answers were well defined and clear to understand. So I'm going to pick up and watch the rest, because I was learning a lot from it, and it was quite interesting. Okay, thanks, Amber. Any other questions or comments on that summit? Okay, seeing that, I'm going to go on to item 8.2, the 2024 committee meeting schedule. You've all seen what the city is proposing. And I got to tell you, for myself, I oppose this offer that the city has put forward to have this committee go on a meeting schedule of every other month. My feelings are that this will really impede our ability to successfully achieve the goals of what our mandate states. Going 2 months without meetings, I just have such a hard time with that, trying to get around that. And I want to point out something, and I'm going to say, you know, Justin, no disrespect to you or anybody in the city clerk's office, but I did a lot of investigation with this, and what I found was the original memo that went to council for the November 21st meeting. I watch council meetings on a regular basis, and I usually look at the agenda several days before to see what's going to be discussed. But this time I didn't get a chance to see the agenda until about a half an hour before the meeting. And that's when I saw this 3 or 4 page letter from the city clerk explaining how the city came about dissolving several committees and making various changes. And I don't disagree with some of the decisions that have been made. I disagree with the fact that our committee, along with the diversity committee, were singled out with going to every other month. But with the investigating that I was doing, I was talking to several people, and it wasn't until yesterday I was given a document that goes back to 2012, where the city did have a policy in place for dealing with volunteer committee structure review. And this, if I could read what this is saying, It says the Council of the City of Thorold has formed a committee of council representatives to review the volunteer committee structure. The intent of the committee is to provide council with recommendations on the appropriate number of councillors required to sit on various committees, potential opportunities for the consolidation of committees, and how to effectively manage committees and boards. Council was presented the attached report on February 7, 2012, recommending changes. No decisions were made at the time. However, it was requested that each council committee board have the opportunity to provide input into the proposed changes prior to the decision being made. This is the issue that I have, that we were not consulted ahead of time for offering any input on how we are operating or how they expected us to operate by making these changes in our schedule. So I have put my position forward for the record that I do oppose this change in our schedule for meetings, and I believe we should be remaining on a monthly meeting schedule. I'm going to take questions or comments on that. I saw Mark had his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So unfortunately, I haven't looked at that council meeting, and I apologize for that. And if you want me to go off and do that, I will do that. But if there's a quick answer to the question, which is I'm trying to understand the context around where this decision was made, as well as the motivation. Like, what are we trying to achieve by reducing the frequency of the meeting? Is there an answer to that?
Well, the document itself is pretty well about 6 or 7 pages. This is what went to the city council. We didn't get anything like that directly, so I forwarded to the committee members the document. But it does talk about, after a review of the committee local board structure, these groups have been able to function well on a procedural bylaw and continue to work towards their respective mandates. Now, this is referring to the Environment Committee, Parks, Trails and Recreation, Road Safety, Town and Gown, and Heritage Advisory. But when it talks about us going to the 6 meetings, it says this recommendation is based on the workload, the requirements on staff liaisons, and the additional time for committee working groups to meet and report to the committee. All we have in our work plan right now that is ongoing, and it's something that's going to be long term, is an initiative that Leslie and I are going to be working on with establishing a bylaw dealing with boulevard planting. We were doing the tree initiatives, which Councillor O'Hare is involved in. So we took care of the Tree Canada grant. So that's out of the work plan now. Earlier this year, we started out talking about the dog feces in the city. And through the discussions that we had and dealing with the dog feces, the conversation shifted over to the parks and thinking that if there was a program implemented in one of the city parks as a test pilot, then it would be easier to monitor how effective what we would be suggesting, how effectively it's going to be working. It could be monitored a lot easier than trying to implement some kind of initiative within the city on sidewalks. So having said that, an initiative like that, if it's dealing with the parks, we could easily pass that off over to the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee, because that should be something that maybe it would be in their mandate and they could take that on. So I really don't understand why the city is after us to go to a bi-monthly schedule. Leslie, you got your hand up.
Yeah. I'm going to be blunt. I've been around a long time. And when I read this, what went through my mind is they are not making this suggestion for the benefit of the community groups who volunteer hours and hours of time. They are looking at a staff problem. And our meeting structure and how we continue should not be judged by how many staff are but we need one staff person And we operated for years the age-friendly committee on one staff person, and we got a lot done. What I see here is staff making a recommendation to lower their workload. And that shouldn't be something that causes advisory committees made up of volunteers. That shouldn't be structuring their way of operating. I mean, when I look at, the OHA, last year we I have to put together a form every year that goes to OHA as district director, and we provided over 38,000 volunteer hours. And if you want to put a price on that, you can. And but that shows the amount of time that volunteers in the community are willing to give to these groups. And it's just cutting us out of this and then making a suggestion without any public participation. I worked with the municipal government, the MOE, the federal government on nuclear waste, and they always, starting in 1984, they started involving the public at the beginning of the process, not at the end of the process, when the decisions have already been made by staff or others. And this is what I'm seeing. We're going back to the 70s in Ontario, if that's the case. And we should not be doing that. We should be able to make allowances without cutting hours that we need. We need to meet. We're volunteers. We need to be able to discuss things. And we were told that we couldn't have ad hoc meetings without having the clerk and having them record it. And that's fine. We agreed to that, but we did not agree to every 2 months. That's a recipe for failure. And if you want me to predict it, I'll predict it now.
I agree with you 100%, Leslie. We cannot go 2 months, and like you say, we cannot communicate as a committee in between those 2 months, because then it's considered a quorum. So then we're just like, I'll send you an email and then you can send it to somebody else, and that's how we're going to be communicating, and that's just unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. So you nailed it exactly how I look at the situation too. Mark's got his hand up.
Yeah, Joe. So I guess let's be practical. So there's 2 things that I'm wondering. One is, can we undo this? And if not, then I've heard both you and Leslie say that we're not supposed to meet in between, but why not? Let's meet in between and do what we can to move forward on some things, and then we'll be much better prepared for the every 2-month meetings with council, and they're going to see though that there's going to be a lot more workload doing it that way, because then we'll be better prepared and come with things to do. So, well, I mean, I respect, and by the way, I respect the staff's challenges. I'm not discounting that at all. So I'm trying to say, either we undo it or we're going to have to meet on our own outside of it and find a way to make that work.
Mark, under the Municipal Act, we're not allowed to meet as a group. We would be conducting business and coming to conclusions. We'd be holding basically a quorum. We can only meet if we have private meetings where we don't have a quorum. So we have to follow the rules, procedures, and bylaws. This is what the city is after. They agree that in this letter that they provided to council that we have been very close to following the rules and regulations. And part of it is because these meetings are recorded, so the public is seeing them. So they're looking at all sorts of angles, liability issues, and who we're representing. We're speaking for the city. So the way we undo this is we basically oppose this recommendation that the city is putting forward to us. And our position is that we remain meeting on a monthly basis. Yeah, like you're saying, exactly, and what Leslie is basically saying too. If we meet every other month, then the month that we meet, our meetings are going to be twice as long because of what we're going to have to deal with.
Carrie has her hand up, but otherwise, then do we take some
Okay,
sort of a vote?
She's not on my screen right now, but if Carrie's got her hand up, go ahead, please, Carrie.
Sorry, I just wanted to read Amber's note from the chat because it looked like she had to jump off. And she said, my position on the meetings taking place every other month is I would be supportive if we are able to develop working groups that can meet on specific projects in between committee meetings. So I don't know if that helps with the, or if that still doesn't abide by the administrative bylaw with respect to meetings and committees.
We can do that as it is right now. The working groups can meet whenever they want. The meetings aren't recorded, or the minutes aren't recorded, but you basically have a person that represents the committee, and then they report, or the ad hoc committee, then they report back to the committee meeting. So what Amber is saying doesn't really benefit us. We need to be able to conduct our business on a monthly basis. So her point is taken, but it doesn't help us. Any other comments, or Leslie?
So are we going to make a motion in opposition to this? Because one thing that is a problem right now, and they didn't address, was the fact that we always had the option to be able to go to council and explain what's going on. They have, the way that everything is set up now, for example, I've been waiting about asking for a specific grant for the garden contest we ran during the summer. In the past, up until the last few years, we would call the city clerk's office, we would make an appointment, we would send them the information, what we were going to present. They'd tell us we had 10 minutes at whatever council meeting was there, and we would attend. We would tell the council what we were interested in, and we would have an interaction. And that's what volunteer groups need. They've cut that off completely. And for the last, 5 months, 6 months, I'm still waiting to find out whether we're going to get the money that we asked for that. We're not in the business of the Thorold Garden Club of subsidizing the city of Thorold, but we're having to do that because they're a party of that event. And I have not been able to make a presentation to them, and it hasn't worked going to staff. I've had 3 different staff ask me for details, and I've recirculated the email that I sent with that information. I am busy. I don't need that roadblock. And it sounds like something simple because this is not for a lot of money or anything else, but it's a process that's broken down. When I worked for the region, developing public participation models of how to get information to the public early, so you didn't get complaints and people upset going to the media. That's what they wanted. And we set that up and it worked perfectly. Well, right now you've got a situation where we're not happy with this. And any other volunteers would be in the same category. We're not staff. We don't work on staff hours. And I realize that it's a commitment having one staff person for every meeting in all the advisory committees. But that's the way you need to do business in 2023. And if you change that, The politicians are not going to get elected because this is going to become a major issue. Not being able to talk to the people that you're trying to elect, that's supposed to be accountable. And if you remove all this, you're leaving us with no way of making them accountable enough that they can go out to the public and support ideas that come from these various committees. And that needs to be considered by politicians. That does, I realize that's different than what staff was writing in this document. We need some way to get to explain to politicians what this sort of attitude and change will make to their overall operation in the city.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. I'm gonna steer this over towards Justin.
I have Councillor Longo wants to speak as well.
Okay, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add a few things here, maybe some different suggestions that the board, the committee can look at. First of all, I want to let the committee members know that since this meeting where this motion was put forward and accepted, we had an organizational review meeting just a few days ago. I don't know if anybody on this committee has seen that meeting, but Deloitte came back with a suggestion that the city is short at this time about 50 employees. 24 are critical, they're saying. We have referred that report to our budget committee. We are going to look at hiring new staff members. Now, the reason I mention this is this all goes back towards what I believe is the issue here. We have staff members who need to sit in on these committee meetings. At this point, there are 3 staff members sitting here. There were 4 at one point. They are, from what we're being told, stretched many different ways. And this is a way to alleviate some of their workload by making the committee meetings every 2 months. Now, I'll cut to the chase here. My suggestion might be one of 2 things. We can send a letter back to council and say we oppose this. We want it to be every month. Maybe they'll say yes, but that doesn't solve the problem we have, which is a staffing solution. Or do we just accept it the way it is, maybe making note that we're not happy? We go every 2 months until budget comes around, and potentially there may be a hire in the clerk's department that will allow our committee now in 2024 to relook at this and meet every month. And I just wanted to throw that out because I don't know if the committee members are aware of the staffing issues at City Hall. So I'll just leave it at that, and maybe we can discuss that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Longo, and I'm going to respond to you in this. I understand what you're saying. There's been a staffing problem for years. This just didn't happen. But if we're to agree, there is only 2 of the committees out of all the other ones existing that are being asked to go to every other month. You still have Parks, Trails, and Recreation is going monthly, and Road Safety Advisory is still going monthly. Why were we picked? I mean, we have a full agenda that I bring to this meeting every month. The workload that we have put on the staff is only their need to participate in this meeting for an hour or 2. We're not loading them up with work that they got to go back to their desk and go through stuff. We've basically had PowerPoint presentations from various speakers that have come in, and they're doing it on an educational purpose. We've had Sean Dunsmore address the committee on capital works projects. So we've been updated on what the city's doing there. We've engaged with the community on our own time. I was heavily involved with the people on Broderick Avenue when the one original plan came out that they were going to take away that center median. So Councillor O'Hare was was also involved on his time. I was meeting with a group. I was involved in a number of email exchanges with the group people. You know, we involved with the Northland Power, where John Hamilton did a presentation to council. Mark Freeman did a presentation to council before he came on as a member. We've been doing all this on our own time, basically. We've been very out there. We're trying to get ourselves known. We did a tour of the EVSX facility. So I don't know why we're being asked to go every other month. And I see other committees that their workloads aren't near, or they're not being as productive. And I don't want to be critical of them because they only deal with the issues as they come up. But this is our first year, and we came on board with a mandate. We didn't know exactly what we were going to be getting into. And I'm telling you, like, I'm really impressed with the committee members we have. I'm very pleased with Councillor Longo and Councillor O'Hare being on our committee. They've been very supportive. They've been bringing ideas to the table. But I just am in opposition of the direction that the city has taken in trying to come to some kind of a solution just because of a staffing issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Leslie before I
Can I just respond?
Councillor Longo.
Can I just respond?
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree, and I don't want anybody on this committee to feel put off by the city. I said, my feeling was there's two solutions. We either object or we try to move forward the way it is. I agree with what you say. Let's object. Let's put a motion forward where we object to this, if that's what the committee wishes, and let's send it back to council and give them the reasons why. I agree with that, but we need to come up with a decision here, either to accept or reject and object. So,
well, yeah, I understand, and that's where I was going to go with Justin to before I realized that you had your hand up. I was going to ask Justin, like, okay, we're in opposition to this motion that's being put forward to us that we're supposed to accept. So this is how I want to show what wording we're going to put forward that's going to let council know that we oppose this change to our schedule. Am I correct in saying that?
that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
It's been passed, but we can have council reconsider their position.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Leslie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, we're not, I can't phrase this nicely. We're not in the business of worrying about your staff problem. We've known about it for years. There's a problem. My suggestion would be that we put a motion forward, strongly worded, and with an explanation to follow of why we oppose this part of this project, and suggest that they allow us to sit down with the clerk's department and figure out an alternative that might be workable. Because when we tried to do work by talking to people on our own committee, we were told we couldn't do that unless if we had a quorum, and that we had to meet, and that made it made the staff's workload more because we had to meet each time, but we abide by that. It's this business of I would resent it and do resent it on any committee I'm on, if somebody else comes back and decides when I meet. The only people that know what we're doing and what we're proposing for the future are the people sitting on this committee. And if we believe that we need to meet, they've got to figure out a way to do it, because the benefit, it's for us as a community, but it's also for the politicians. And if they want support for things that they have to do, like adding staff, they need the public support. They don't need a public that's upset because being told how to operate our own committee. If they thought they could do it without us, I'm sure that they would do that. But I think the politicians were smart enough to realize that there are issues that are going to come up over the next few years. And this is the type of committee that's going to have to deal with them. And whether you want us to meet every month during 2024 or not, we're going to have to find out a way to do that work. Because in 2025, there are going to be changes. And the council's going to want us to be able to advise them on things that come up in the future. And they've already lost committee members over the structures. But we've been dealing with the new structure all along. The only difference is somebody's mandating that we only have meetings every second month, and it's just not workable.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. I'm going to go to Justin. Justin, so if we put forward wording that we're opposing this schedule adjustment, do we just keep it as opposing it, and that goes to council? And if the clerk's department chooses to reach out to us after this has gone to council, then we can sit down and talk about the issues. But I don't want too much wording going into this motion of opposition. I just want the city to know that we oppose it. Is that, am I making myself clear?
Yeah, I'm not certain the best way, but if I can't, one thing I can advise, I can't have a negative motion. There's that. We could put this motion forward that is on here, and then it be rejected by this committee, and then you could possibly put a motion that council reconsider the schedule for this committee and just leave it at that, and then that could go to council. I have to ask the clerk, of course, if that is all fine, but that would be my suggestion, at least right now at this point.
Okay, so then I would call for a mover and a seconder on adopting what is put forward to us. And if we don't get a mover or a seconder, then how do we proceed?
So my recommendation is the mover and seconder is just to put it on the floor to talk about it and to vote it. It's not that you're supporting it. It's just to put it up here for us to be able to vote about it and talk about it. So it's not showing your support for it. It's just putting it on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion before I call it, I put this onto the floor for a vote? And it's up to us to put forward our position after I get the mover and the seconder. Then we vote. You're either going to be for it or you're going to be against it. And then at that point, we've agreed, okay? So can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the 2024 meeting schedule? So seeing none, where do we go, Justin? I mean, the idea was that what Justin explained, Councillor Longo?
I will move this.
Okay.
Okay, because we have to get it on the floor. So I'll move
exactly. That's the way Justin explained it.
Yeah, it's not that you're supporting it. It's just so that we can talk about it and vote about it.
That's right. I'm moving it to put it on the floor.
Okay. Councillor Longo moves. Can I get a seconder? Okay, Carrie's seconding.
Thank you.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Raise your hand. Carrie, have you, I can't see Carrie's, so that's unanimous?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Get that set aside. Let's go to number 9.
Before we go, before we go aside, this wouldn't be going to council, this part, but if you want to make a separate motion that council reconsider the schedule, and then I'll check with the clerk to make sure that is okay to go forward, because city council has already made their decision, so I just don't know exactly, but as long as we get it in here now, And then if it can go to council, it will, and if not, I'll advise about that.
Okay, can I ask you to put that up on the screen so that the committee members could see what
Give me a
they're
few
voting
minutes. Just give me a few minutes here.
Yep, thank you.
Chair?
Leslie, you got something to say?
I just have one more comment. My background is environmental issues that are contentious. And if you support it in any way, whether you bring it to the floor or not, you're allowing decisions to be made. You have to oppose it now and send in a brief to council explaining why. If you allow them to do this through the normal channels, the decision will consider the decision made. That's the easy way out, just to vote the whole thing in and not worry about anything else. If you oppose it, you have leverage to be able to discuss it. We don't want them being handed this document and just rubber stamping it, because then we don't have a chance to get the changes that we want. So yeah, I'm opposed to that.
Okay, thank you, noted.
Hold on.
Okay, we'll just wait for Justin to get the wording up that we're going to be voting on.
Something like that.
Yep, I think so. Leslie?
Okay, so in a way of modifying this, I don't think we need to meet 12 meetings. The majority of groups and organizations I belong to don't meet during the summer. That's when they do a lot of their work with collecting resources and so on. And December, we don't meet. So if you take those three out and allow us to have meeting January to June and September to November. It's a compromise that would be less staff time.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Leslie, but I would I'd like to see the 12 meetings, because it gives us the opportunity that should we come into the summer and we know that maybe some people are going to be on vacation, it gives me the option of canceling the meeting. I don't want to be in a position where something comes up and then, but I as a chair, I have the right to call special meetings, and I don't want to put our committee in that position where I got to rely on trying to call a special meeting and getting everybody lined up on the same day that they're available. So I would rather have the 12 meeting schedule and cancel if I need to. And I understand that there probably will be meetings throughout the year that might occur. So I would rather stay with the 12 from my viewpoint. If anybody else has anything else to say, Leslie?
Well, instead of that, just add to this motion frequency to 12 meetings per year, or as determined by the chairman of the committee. Because in some cases, you might need something extra if something comes up.
I know, and that already is in our mandate. I can call special meetings at any time.
Well, they're changing our terms of reference and everything. This is a way to make sure if they agree to that it's on their books already. Because now they could make changes to our terms of reference that don't allow the chairman to do that.
Well, this motion that they've brought forward is only changing our meeting frequency within the terms of reference, because right now it says we meet 12 times a year. What they're doing, this meeting schedule, is changing only that part of the terms of reference from 12 to 6. So I'll still have the right to call special meetings.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, you got your hand up?
Yeah, Joe, I just gonna say I agree that we should keep it as 12 per year, assuming that if there's an agreement among us that we need to cancel 1 or 2 or so, that we can do that. So, but I think it's better to set the expectation with the city that we want to have 12 meetings a year.
Yeah, because I'm fully in favor of if we're moving along and suddenly our agenda starts dropping off where it's not worth it to have a meeting on a particular month because there's not going to be enough information to talk about, I'll be perfectly happy to postpone, cancel that meeting and defer any items to the next meeting. But the way we've been going along so far, for what we've had about 10 meetings now, we have had a full agenda every meeting. So I just can't see it backing off to a point where we could work with every other month. So I would rather stay with the 12 and cancel if necessary. So we happy with the wording that is here now? And I'll call for a mover and a seconder. So can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt this motion before us? Mark, you're moving, and seconder? I'll do the second on this. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Can I see Councillor Longo and O'Hare? Have you got your hands?
Both councillors are in favor so far.
Okay, so we've got everybody in favor, opposed if anybody. And I guess Leslie, with not voting, is counted as opposition, right, Justin?
Yes.
Abstaining because I think you
You have to vote.
need to present a compromise, not. Otherwise, it's just like it's negotiation. You have to give something. And if you can still call a meeting when you need to, if you show that you're willing to compromise, you don't want 6 meetings, but you do want 8, 10 meetings. I think there's more likelihood you're going to get councillors to agree to that. And I also wonder, will the clerk's office be arguing against this when it comes to council?
Well, this is what I'm looking at, Leslie. We're putting our position on the table right now. And if the clerk's department, after this goes to council, wants to sit down and talk with us, we will. But right now, they haven't talked with us. They just arbitrarily made this decision. So I don't want the motion going in that we're negotiating, but we're going to sit down and talk. If they choose to approach us, we can discuss it then, and we can have a full open discussion where everybody lays their cards on the table, and then we can move forward. So I don't think.
But how do we let council who are going to see this motion know that? That's what I'm getting at.
No,
You have 2 councillors on this
There's no
committee
way
who
they're
can
gonna
speak to
know
this
that
as
we
well.
would do that.
Remember, there are 2 councillors on this committee that can speak
I
at council
realize
to
that.
this.
I'm
Yes.
just saying.
they represent us on council.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we've taken care of that now. I think there's nothing else for that particular topic. Can we go to item 9, roundtable discussion? Has anybody got anything for roundtable? I'm gonna go, Carrie, have you got anything?
I was only going to circle back to a previous conversation about the community gardens and the suggestion from the Thorold staff member that the committee could direct staff to like look into options with respect to, and then we didn't make a motion or anything on that. So I just wondered whether we should make a recommendation or a motion to have staff look into developing a process or looking at best practices at other municipalities for developing a process for community gardens, so that if there is some that come forward, there's a process in place and it's simpler to have them move forward. We just never made a motion on that. So that was all I was going to bring up.
Yeah. I was like, I'd suggested that, I said that I would forward a copy of the St. Catharines lease agreement. Maybe it might be helpful for us to get a little bit more understanding of the legal aspect of setting up these gardens, and then I can build a little bit more information for us so we can move forward on what you're suggesting. Are you okay with it? Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is quite a legal document. I forget how many pages it is, but they cover everything, and it is pretty interesting. And I'm hoping that we can move forward on that particular initiative, because what Luke and Aaron brought to the meeting was great information for us to look forward to. So thanks for your suggestion. Anything else?
Okay. Nothing else from this week.
Okay. Mark, have you got anything for roundtable?
Yeah, Joe, hi. So I have 3 questions really. So I'm not sure the treatment of them here, but let me get my notes. So I'll start with a comment. So St. Catharines City Council recently approved a staff report to increase its emissions reduction targets for 2030 and 2050. So I'm not suggesting that we go down that same path for Thorold. I had more basic question in terms of Thorold with respect to greenhouse gas emission. Do we actually track them? And not just the municipality itself, but the entire population. And if and also if Thorold has greenhouse gas emission target reductions. Those are my questions on that topic. I do have 2 other topics.
Okay, I'm going to direct this to if either counselors could answer that question, or does this go to Connor for him to look into, or if he can answer in the meeting right now. So can any of the counselors speak to this?
Chair, it's Councilor Longo. I don't know the answers to this. I would suggest that these questions are referred to staff.
Okay.
And staff.
I know the answer.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
And that's why they were asking for a sit down about boulevard planting, because they need to update their bylaws in order to manage these sorts of ideas as they become forward. So I would suggest that Jeff Holman is the person that sits on the committee that we've developed in Thorold, and find out what his thoughts are, because he's asked me to be the resource on that committee. So I would direct it directly to him. I don't think we have that either.
Okay. Anything else, Mark?
Yeah, so I've noticed in the news recently that Walker Industries are going to be expanding their landfill. Now, this may have already been discussed in council or in this committee, but they are, Walker Industries, that is, are hosting a public open house coming up in a couple of weeks, where they're talking about requesting an environmental assessment. So I don't think it's there. So my question is, what is the role of this committee with respect to their landfill expansion?
If this was a capital works project for the city of Thorold, this committee would be notified of a PIC that's being held, like a public information center. Because this is a private industry, it's good that we're paying attention to the news, because I saw that in the paper too. And I was intending on participating, like showing up at this event to see what their proposal is. This is basically an open house that's for the public. So this could deal with anybody that's living within the region or even outside of the region. This could be people from St. Catharines or any of the other activist groups that we are kind of linking ourselves to that might want to come in and see what Walker's is putting forward.
Yeah, I just didn't understand the context of they're saying they're requesting an environmental assessment.
Yeah.
So is that with provincial government? Sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
Okay, so I led the group that I played lawyer at the last EA that set up the Walker Brothers Quarries garbage collection availability. We knew then that they would be coming back with a process to expand because they've got the land. They bought the land a long time ago. The last proposal, the city didn't participate. I was given standing because we had a community group that was opposed to a project previous to what Walker now does for hazardous waste. The government was a partner. The government pulled out of Walker Brothers' proposal and created the Ontario Waste Management Corporation, and I was the director of communications for the region. Then they went to a hearing for their garbage because they're bringing it in from Toronto. I mean, all the bigger cities have run out of landfill space. So they're trucking it from Toronto to Walker Brothers. A lot of money in garbage. So we should have a presence, but the federal government wasn't interested back in 1984. And I doubt whether they'll be interested now other than to approve it. Because Walker is such a good corporate citizen now. So, yeah, you're right asking the questions about me. It's modified now, doesn't take as much time, but there are all sorts of issues, transportation being one of the major ones coming into our community from Toronto with all their garbage. So we should follow it, and we should ask council to follow it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, it's a good point you raised, Mark, and good answer, Leslie. Anything else?
Yeah, last question is regarding, and I'd love to do the research myself if someone can point me to the resources. I'm interested in understanding the green spaces in Thorold. And when I say green space, I mean real green spaces, not parks for kids, but actual green spaces. And this was before the discussion from the community gardens, but it was actually just reinforced the need for this understanding of green spaces in the municipality for a number of different reasons that could come up. Most specifically, understanding our opportunity to support biodiversity. So I'm curious if there is a resources where I can look at to understand where all the green spaces are in Thorold.
Okay, wouldn't the city have a map of that?
I would assume they would.
Yeah.
Justin?
It's probably their last plan, 5-year plan. They probably have it there.
So unfortunately, Connor had to leave, but I can send this to him to see if he can get some more information.
Okay, yeah, there should be. Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mark?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, great points. Leslie, have you got anything for roundtable?
I'm hoping no. No, I don't. I the next few weeks, I'm still doing the installations of officers in various groups across the region. And their next big event will be City Saturday in February.
Yeah, great.
February 10th at the Senior Center. And we're organizing that over Christmas. So.
Great to hear. Looking forward to it. Let's go to Councillor O'Hare. Do you have anything for roundtable?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to end with a good news story, and that is that gas power plants are still in the news throughout our province. Just recently, Loyalist Township turned down the application for a gas plant, peaker plant, and unfortunately Napanee voted to support it. But the good news story is that I just want to say and reiterate that I'm so proud of the City of Thorold's Council for having turned down the application of the peaker plant. It was a brave and bold thing to do, and I'm really proud to say I was a part of that.
You're absolutely right. Put Thorold on the map. We were congratulated in the Toronto Star article, which was a good thing. Yeah, there was a lot of work that went into that, and a lot of good people that stepped up to the plate and really solidified the position of being anti for that particular operation. Councillor Longo, do you have anything for Roundtable?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I'm going to raise is I can direct this to Justin as just a question. I spoke about it earlier where I put forward that motion to council back in the summer about the city hosting an Earth Day event, and it was going to go to staff. Now I know, like, okay, the Santa Claus Christmas parade is over, so I'm not too sure what the staff workload is in this particular time right now, but I think it's probably pertinent that I meet with somebody from staff so we can start laying the groundwork for this particular event. It's going to take a bit of work, so if you could let me know who I'm supposed to be dealing with to get this initiative started, I'd appreciate it.
I'd suggest maybe start with Jeff Holman to start, and then he can kind of direct from there.
Okay, so I can just email him directly, and he's going to have an understanding of what my original proposal was. I'm sure.
Yeah, he should, and if not, we can let him know.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's about it for me. Now, as far as our next meeting, now item 10, it says here, assuming the 2024 schedule has not changed, the next meeting will be held on February 2nd, but our position is the schedule is remaining the same. So our next meeting would be for January, correct? Am I correct, Justin, if I close the meeting off that way?
So technically right now, we are on 6 meetings because council has passed
okay.
that. We don't have the dates though because we voted not on those. So yeah, I'll be in contact and we can go from there, I guess.
Okay, I get it, yeah. Okay, so the next meeting will be held on February 2nd, 2024. Item 11, adjournment. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 12:03 p.m. I thank everybody. We had some great discussions, covered a lot